All right. Mary Ellen, would you like to give us our open public meeting?
Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the meeting of the HPC was provided by transmitting a copy to the Madison Eagle and the Morris County Daily Record and posting a copy of the bulletin board and filing in the office of the clerk, all on Wednesday, August 5th, 2020, because of the power outages caused by the Hurricane Isis. I don't know how to say it, but that's. And copies of the notice were made available to the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Laurie, let's do a roll call so we're sure we're all here.
Okay, Janet Foster.
Obviously here.
Okay. Mary Ellen Lenahan.
Yes.
Jill Rhodes.
Jill's here.
She didn't make it back, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she signed off and we're all like, I'm in, but I can't get the settings to turn on or video to
I just saw her name pop up.
So maybe she's getting there. All right.
Shall we count her as here?
We shall count her as here, yes.
Okay. Chris Kellogg.
Yep.
Max Hart.
Yep.
Dave Luber.
Yep.
Okay. John Solu. Absent. Carmine Toto absent. And John Forte.
Yeah.
Absent.
Absent.
Okay. Jonathan Testa.
I'm here. I'm just not sharing video right now, but I am here.
Okay, great. Carmela Vitale is not here.
Right.
We may expect her to join us later. Michael, if you can hear us, Jill is having problems. She's going to try to sign in again.
She's right there. I see her mic is open. She just hasn't turned her camera on.
Hasn't turned her camera on. Okay.
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes.
But my signal is really bad. I'm going to keep my camera off. It hopes that improves it because right now you guys all look and sound like you're stacking jittery things underwater.
Probably be best if you don't speak. It's really bad.
Jill, why don't you click the arrow next to the microphone and say switch to phone audio and call in through your cell phone? That usually picks up better for audio. If you see that, it'll give you a phone number and a password to enter, and you'll just dial right back in as audio. We won't have to do anything.
I will try to figure out how to do that. Okay.
I guess if you just put it on mute, right?
We're all learning so much. I will let Michael drive this truck. I have no expertise.
Marie said she's waiting for, I'm trying to think, I just lost it, hold on. Waiting for Zoom link, so I don't
So that means, okay, well.
see, okay?
All right, so don't be hasty. All right, we have to give.
We got lots, all right?
So is that Carmen's wife,
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
So then I shouldn't count Carmen as absent yet?
No.
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 Mary Ellen, you need to ask her who she's joining at because her name's not here on the list. So I can't promote anybody to turn their camera on unless we know exactly who it is.
She's Marie Toto.
It's
Correct.
Carmine's wife. She's the
Correct.
tech person in the house.
She's not listed there as Marie Toto. So
Oh, sorry.
Toto Marie5@gmail.com.
yeah, she's not there. So she has not joined this Zoom meeting.
Okay, can you?
Unless she puts the link in the email, there's nothing else I can unfortunately do.
Yeah.
I did put in a link in the email.
Correct, but
Well, if she doesn't get it the right way, then let's try.
Someone else wants to try and send it to her. I tried, he asked password. I said, you don't need a password.
you could ask her what her name is because I can't let anybody through unless we know who it is due to security reasons.
Okay.
Okay.
You can't use the email?
It does not give me an email option. I need to know what name they have put into the system.
Like Marie Toto is who I get it from.
Let me try to call her.
Okay.
It's a good thing we're starting early.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, and there's Jill. Oh God. Okay.
Do you want me to call Carmen?
Actually, I have her listed on my list as Toto Marie 5.
Army, this is Jan.
Boy, there's nobody on here that is listed as Toto Marie or Marie
Yes,
Toto or Ms.
Do
Toto.
At Gmail.
you want Michael
Problems?
for me saying to add her?
It doesn't matter. She's not currently in this meeting, so there's
Yeah,
nothing.
last time.
She has to join.
I don't know why either. Let me resend it to Toto Marie 5, right? Okay.
Right.
I'll try it again and hopefully this will work and you click it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. All right. There we go. Forward to Toto Marie. Why this?
But Michael, if she hits the Zoom thing to join the meeting, you have to let her in though.
I have to promote her to a panelist, but she would join in as an attendee and we would see her name, Marie Toto, or some sort of something with Toto, and we do not see that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So,
Okay, yep, I'm trying. Okay, so there we go. We have the original message. Sending that out. Meanwhile, Jill is calling. Yes, trying to get everybody settled. Yes.
So I am able to come in through my phone, but I suspect it's logging me in as Honda Meta. I think that's just how it's going to be set up on my phone. I can view as a spectator.
Right, but Michael doesn't know, let you in. Okay. All right, hang on. Michael?
yes.
Michael? Okay,
Yes.
I have Jill on the phone. I'm going to put her on speaker, I guess.
Under
And
Lupanda?
she's going to tell you who she is. She's not under Jill Rhodes now. She's shifted. And what's your name on this, Jill?
I think it's having me come in on the Zoom as Raponda Meta.
Raponda Meta?
She's joining now.
Okay, he says she's joining now, so
Yeah, okay, so
that's actually Jill. All right. You'll explain that name another time.
That's their candidate.
Oh,
Okay, yes. Hello. They won't let you in. So what is the name on the screen? Is it? Yeah, does it say Carmine Toto or Marie Toto or Toto Marie? Because for your Zoom name, because Michael is. I know. I know, but we have, the borough has added an extra layer of security, so they want to know who's coming. So there's not a Zoom bomber. Well,
Can she see you talking on the screen, Janet?
can you see me? Can you see me talking? No. Okay, you're not seeing the screen yet.
So she is not in the meeting. All she has to do is click that link.
I'm sorry. No, wait. You're talking and Michael Pellicier's talking as well. Michael, tell me again what you just said.
If she does not see you speaking, then she is not in the meeting.
Right. So she needs,
Click the link and enter her name and her email address as required for everybody. And
right.
then we'll be able to see you speaking.
Okay. So you have to, so your name and your email is going to be the Toto Marie, right? Okay. Okay. At Gmail, right? Yes. Can you, let me think. If you have your screen, if you're logging in, there should be a way on the right-hand side where it says, you should be showing up on a list of people, yes? No, no, you're not showing up as a list of people. All right, I have a list. Okay. Well, so I'm going to tell you, so there's a list of attendees, 9589666, that's not you. Brandon Alviano, Daniela, Dehana. US.
No, there's nothing as a US on here.
Do you think, so you have a phone connection? I don't know how you would, I don't know where that would go in, Marie. Maybe?
There are phone numbers there. Hold on.
Yeah, I know, and you're doing a terrific job. Yeah, none of these other names seem to me to be, okay. Can I see you now?
If we, is that her? Is she a 20?
Yes, she said she just saw me.
Oh, good.
Does her phone number end in 3148?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Michael's got you now. Thank you, Marie. Okay. I'm going to hang up because it's too much
Okay.
feedback.
Or I hope you don't wait. Do you really want to hang up yet? Okay.
No, we've got her. We've got her. We've got them. Okay. Everybody, you're being so terrifically patient. That's great.
But I am not on. Do you see me?
We see your name. So at the bottom of the screen, there's a button that says mute, and there's another one that says stop video. And if it has a red slash through it, you click it until it doesn't have a red slash through it.
Okay. All right. It's on the top. On mine, it's on the top.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
So, okay.
There we go.
Let's say here where. So I'm sure Carmen wants to see everybody. There it is. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. What a relief. All right. I think.
Okay. Let me get Carmen set up now.
Okay.
Nice to see everybody. Thanks for helping me. Now I know it's my phone number that is the ID. Whip-de-doo. Here you go, Carm.
Now we know. Okay.
All right. Oh, beautiful. Okay, let's go.
Beautiful.
Hey.
All right, we're here.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see.
Yeah. Approval of minutes.
We're ready to, we call to order. We are ready to approve our minutes, which you should have gotten.
Yes, you got them.
Yep.
From last month, July 14th. They've been revised, and does anybody have any comments on the minutes that we have in front of us?
Nope.
Hearing none, I will suggest that we move to approve them. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? No. Max and Chris missed last meeting, so they're not voting on the accuracy of last month's meeting. But I think there are enough of us who were here that we can approve that. Is that correct, Lori?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, next item, quick sign and facade update.
Sign and facade update. We've done all our research and we are pushing for the second board meeting in September because that's where Carmella has placed us.
Wait. Sign and facade is that can.
And sign and facade is nothing.
It's nothing. Right. Okay. So we're on to the preservation celebration. Right.
Preservation celebration.
Okay.
Crazy.
And tell me again the second.
Oh, we're up to date on all the research.
Okay.
But our goal is to have it ready for the second board meeting in September.
Okay. And I know I had something about approving the expenditure for the signs, so they're ordered and everybody will have a lawn sign and we'll have pictures and everybody will be very happy.
Yes.
Great. All right. Jill, can you hear us, Jill?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and you don't sound underwater, so that's progress.
Okay, hallelujah.
Quick update on the subcommittee for the ordinance review.
Okay, well, it's been a long process, but it's been one with a lot of thoughtful review, close following of the changes. We did a careful scrutiny of the words and phrases to be precise, ensure that we were accomplishing our goals with the rewrite and that the ordinance does what we want it to do within the confines of municipal land use law. I want to take a minute and thank everybody who has submitted comments. I am still collating them for review and in fact was on a conversation earlier today with Dave Luber, who's already submitted his comments on the draft and I have incorporated them. They don't really change the meaning or the intent of the ordinance. They're just small points of clarification, but I will add that they are very valuable points. So I would like to encourage everyone to review the draft and try to understand how it will be applied and how our commission will operate under it. And I am always available for any questions you might have. Since our last meeting, work has progressed on clarifying our role with the other boards and clarifying the process for demolition, along with some other small revisions. To be clear, we cannot prevent demolition and we cannot overrule any other land use body. So our role will only ever be advisory on any application that comes to us before it moves down to either the zoning board or the planning board. You will note that the design guidelines have been revised and reordered from the previous draft to be a little bit more clear. We're working on setting up procedures, checklists, forms, all of that stuff that falls out of the strict bounds of the ordinance, and Janet has really been a guiding light on that. We've gone as far as we can within the confines of municipal land use law. I think we have a really good draft, and it is our attorney's opinion that we have a better ordinance drafted than anybody else in New Jersey because of how we have been so meticulous to clear up the contradictions that seem kind of inherent within municipal land use law.
Is that a nice way of saying we're real picky? Yeah.
We are scientific in our approach. So we've tried to avoid these circular references. We've tried to make sure we are clearly stating our purposes and objectives to remove the need for any interpreting language. I'm a scientist, so I kind of view this as understanding the ordinance should be like a science and not like an art. So we shouldn't have to guess at the meaning and application. It should be clearly stated in the document, and that's really what we've worked hard to make sure it does. I know
Jill,
there's going to be revisions. Yes?
I have a question. From what you said earlier, it sounds like even in the case of demolition, we don't have now the ability to impose mandatory design review and mandatory, design requirements. That's gone now?
It's not gone. Our mandatory review we had was a little bit of a false strength. We kind of have the same strength we had before. It's just now we actually do it within the confines of municipal land use law.
So we can dictate the design of a building that replaces an historic structure.
We can,
And that's defined clearly?
yes. When that new construction does not need, proposed new construction does not need to go to the zoning board or the planning board. If it needs to go to either of the boards, we become advisory. And the new part is that the design guidelines, which have been rewritten and pretty carefully crafted within the ordinance, we're seeking to have those now apply to zoning board and planning board. So when because we can't tell those boards what to do, we can advise in a historic district, but if we're all working off the same design guidelines and that those are in play for the zoning board and planning board, we're all more likely to end up at the same place.
Good.
A new project in a historic district does not need variances or planning board approval, then yes, it is completely HPC design review. And so that's how that hopefully will work. And that's why I'm anxious to launch this in its current state, which is a pretty good draft, I believe, to get feedback, because we're going to need to hold hands and have cooperation from the zoning board and planning board to make this work. And so we need to embark on a nice educational tour with them. And I'm anxious to see us release this so they can begin to think about it and we can begin to talk about it maybe informally over the rest of the summer before it's launched officially to the council. All this hinges on everybody working together. And you can't mandate that. You have to make it happen on our own.
Sounds good.
Right.
Thank you. And Jill, thank you very much, because I think you've been tremendous in guiding us along this path. So this is very good.
Thank you to everybody who's been with me. This has been quite a learning experience. I never realized, I think I should officially be able to claim I have an additional language on my resume, which is MLUL. Calling that a new language. It has been interesting. But yeah, so anyway, I know there's going to be revisions. It's a draft, but it's a great one. And one, as Janet so eloquently said, we really need to get the buy-in from the other relevant parties. So I would like to formally recommend we send this on for review to the other relevant parties, whether that goes to planning chair and Susan Blickstein first. I think it's probably got to go informally to the council to
because I
our
think
liaison at least.
Carmela is interested and
Yes.
she can help us disperse it in the right way. So if we send it to her and the mayor and Ray Cody, I think it'll get to all the right people.
Right.
PDQ. So yeah, I certainly support sending it as soon as possible. Does anybody have any concerns or objections about that?
Can we,
What's the matter, hon?
we talked about some minor changes very recently. Would they be put in there, or are they so minor that we can put them in afterwards?
I think they're so minor that they can go in with the changes that, I mean, I would like to believe that everybody's going to review our ordinance and go, hallelujah, no changes. Not sure that'll happen.
No.
So, I mean, there's no point Jason billing us for the 3 minutes it's going to take him to do the very minor points we've got going on now. So I think I'm just going to hold those and submit it with the larger body of revisions.
I'm okay with that because it is going to go back and forth a couple of times as long as
Right.
you hold that thought, have those notes.
Yep.
And I'm sure we'll have more to talk about as a wider world reviews it.
Okay. All right. Hey, it's 8 o'clock already.
Okay, good for that. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
A quick update. At our last meeting, we agreed to submit an application to the Open Space and Historic Preservation Fund for our capital D design guidelines. Just to be clear, our ordinance includes a rather extensive rewritten section about design guidelines, talking about massing and size and materials that go in the ordinance. But we also had put on a wish list to have more visual design guidelines that would include more layman's language, that would be perhaps an online presence or even a pamphlet that could be handed out to people around town and say, this is what we mean when we say a compatible massing. This is what we mean when we say, having a porch that works. And so, as I said, we got bids for that. We had no money for that. I put in the grant application to Open Space. They are not having an August meeting, lucky them. So they will discuss this on September 9th, which is the day after our next meeting. So just to say that is in progress. It's an important part of our educational mission. And I would say, even if, I certainly hope we have a new ordinance. Even if we didn't have a new ordinance, there's no downside to developing design guidelines that would be accessible and visually pretty and could be circulated around town to help people know what to do with their buildings. So I'm excited for that to move forward. So now you know, and we'll talk about it when we know more. Okay. Anything else for our cause at this point? Then we're going to move into the presentation of the preservation documentation for the Lions Theater, prepared for us by Saxum. Everybody on the commission should have gotten an email download. There was a paper copy being sent. My understanding is that never got to the clerk's office because of slow mail or hurricanes, whatever. So apologies to anybody waiting for the paper copy. I guess it'll be there eventually, but we do have the documents posted through RoseNet. Michael Pellissier, our terrific IT guy, has seen that those are posted, so they are available for public inspection. Let's see, Michael, do we have our members from Saxum team present and ready to?
Everyone except Mr. Wolfson. It looks like Mr. Rinaldi I don't see, and also Kieran.
Kieran Flanagan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairwoman, Peter Wolfson from Dade County.
Hi.
I'm not sure if Kieran's going to make it or not, so we don't need to hold up for him.
Okay, thank you. But everybody else from your side is present and accounted for?
Yeah, everybody, I think that we need to proceed with the discussion.
Okay.
All right, thank you for joining us on a lovely summer evening.
Madam Chairwoman, just before we begin, I believe that there was a request that we received earlier today as to Mr. Kellogg's continued recusal. Mr. Kellogg did voluntarily recuse himself during the prior application on this matter when we made a decision on the resolution. Mr. Kellogg, I just would ask that you honor that recusal again voluntarily, like you had done before. Are you in agreement with that?
Yep, I am agreeing with that. So I will see you later.
You can still be at the meeting. You just can't take any action or provide any comment on it at this point in time.
Yeah, I'll get off this picture shooting range here so you can't see me.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And I would also like to formally abstain from the discussion on this matter since I was also not part of the voting process.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Rhodes.
Okay. We do have a new member, Max Hart, who was new since January, who was not part of the discussion, the whole hearings in 2019. I personally don't see why he can't participate in this and hear this information, because the documentation is a different issue to me than some of the issues we tackled in that case. But let me just make sure both attorneys know that and are clear with having him participate.
Mr. Wilson, do you have any objection with that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And there's some amount of reading of this, partly for the benefit of our public. I see we have some attendees, so bear with me. On August 4th, 2020, Saxum Realty submitted 8 items to the HPC for review, comment, and approval with regard to the preservation documentation of the subject property. The documents, as titled by Saxum, are as followed. Document number 1, 14 Lincoln Place survey, which is a property map, and we will refer to that as the property map. Document number 2, draft HABs level drawings. Document number 3, historic treatment plan, which refers to building survey treatment procedures. That's document number 3. Document number 4, an index, 2 photographs, and black and white and color photographs totaling 47 different images, 47 different pages. The document number 5 is a proposed poster. Document number 6 is another poster, the cinema timeline, and document number 7 was a video. So a substantial chunk of resources sent in line in that packet via Dropbox. It was provided to us for review, and the Historic Preservation Commission does get to review and make a resolution for compliance in accordance with and furtherance of the conditions set forth in paragraphs 5 through 8 in our resolution 3-2019 under section of the HPC ordinance 112-8 subset C, basically complying with our ordinance or our resolution of last summer. In addition to the demolition of the theater, we requested documentation of that building for our records. I would like to ask Mr. Wolfson, if you are representing the applicant, to give us a short presentation about your goals, and then is Mr. Ross in attendance?
Yes.
We might want to hear more directly from him, since I understand he prepared it.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to come before you to talk about our progress in complying with the conditions that Madam Chairwoman just referred to from your resolution and certificates of approval on demolition and the new construction. Mr. Barton will lead you through the materials that were listed by Madam Chairwoman and his thinking about compliance with those conditions. Before I turn it over to him, I just want to give a progress report on condition number 3 and let the commissioners know that we have connected with the right folks at both New Jersey Transit and the United States General Services Administration, and are working with them towards confirming the plans both on demolition and construction for the protection of the post office as well as the New Jersey's transit structures. So that's well underway, and I'm sure we'll be reporting back to you once that process is complete.
Great. Okay.
August evening, I don't want to talk any more than you need to listen, so I will turn it over to Mr. Ross.
Okay, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Do I need to get sworn in or am I fine?
I don't think we're swearing at each other at all tonight. I think we're looking at the materials
Okay.
you sent. It may be easiest that if we have a series of comments that we've collected, and maybe if we go through them one by one and can share with you what our questions or comments are, and you can respond, or if you would like to do I mean, in some ways they're self-explanatory. They are what they are. If you have another presentation, tell me.
Yeah, let me just walk you through like 5 minutes or less.
One second, Mr. Ross. Just for consistency, I think it would be best, even though we're not doing a formal hearing right now, it would be best, since he is somewhat providing some testimony here, that we do swear him in just to make sure that we're in compliance with the requirements. Okay.
Sorry, did not realize that. Okay.
That's all right. If the Madam Clerk, would you mind swearing in the witness, please, at this point in time?
We don't. Do we have a clerk?
That's fine. I could. The secretary is referring to. But that's fine. Mr. Ross, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Terrific. All right. So good evening, all. So as some of you might know, my firm really only works on historic preservation related projects. So when we were brought onto this project, we really wanted to do the right thing by the building and ensure it received its due recognition through proper documentation for the sake of posterity and memory of the building. So I want to walk you through the works and documents that we were able to provide tonight. So the site survey is pretty self-explanatory, and it was done in 2016 to 17. And then we prepared the 5 drawings. So that's the 2 floor plans, the main level and the second floor level, where the projection rooms and the offices were. Then we provided a roof plan and 2 sheets of elevations. So there's 2 elevations on each sheet. So that's all 4 facades. And we really had to start from scratch. Even I wasn't prepared that there was just nothing existing condition-wise on the building. So we really did do everything from scratch out there. We did the 47 pages of the catalog black and white and color images. That's interior and exterior, kind of a mix of photos going all around the building. We did the 25-minute long video, and that's walking, again, all around and through the structure. And this actually wasn't as easy as it looks because there's no electricity or interior lighting in the building. So we kind of had to adjust lights on the fly as we went around. We did the written specifications for the historic treatment procedures for a contractor to carefully salvage the plaque, the 2 chandeliers, and the wooden ticket booth for reuse. We have spoken to contractors versed in historic preservation about the salvage and demolition project and what they would be required to do per your resolution. And we've also discussed with them the need for engineer shoring drawings so that the adjacent structures can be protected during the demolition. And finally, we prepared the timeline that Ms. Foster referenced, and that's it was kind of a neat thing, a timeline of the whole building, for the last 100 years. And we were thinking that could be kind of a historic interpretive panel that could be mounted outside, so people, visitors walking by or to the building could read about the building and its history. The other poster was also meant for an interpretive display. There's space for text, and we were thinking that this would have more additional photos kind of telling the story and the history of the building. So obviously, we anticipate some of these design details will eventually be worked out to a finer level with the architect of record as the project moves forward. But basically, that's what we've been able to document so far. So with that, I'll thank you and gladly answer any questions.
Mr. Ross, it's very, thank you for the materials you provided. It sounds to me like we're in the middle of the project itself, because we took a look at it and have some comments. I know Janet's got a lot of them. But from what Mr. Wolfson said and from what you're saying, we're working on this together as an ongoing project, true?
Yes.
If I might speak to that, I mean, I think we're at a point in terms of the specifically conditions 5, 6, and 8 to reach a conclusion.
Okay, well, okay, now I know we've got some comments on those. So we can talk about that.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I will be summarizing the comments of the HPC on behalf of the commission. This Zoom format makes it very hard to talk back and forth logically. We also had our preservation consultant, John Hatch of Clark Caton Hints, review the materials, and he submitted some notes. All the comments that were received were remarkably similar in content. And I would say if at the end of my summary, if any HPC member wishes to add anything, there will be an opportunity, and following that, the public will be permitted to make any comments. So our general comments are documentation, as you know, is the last means of preservation of a property when the property is to be demolished. Its documentation provides future researchers access to valuable information that would otherwise be lost. The Secretary of Interior standards for architectural guidelines for architectural and engineering documentation relies on standards of Historic American Building Survey, or HABs, as we'll talk about it in this conversation, and have guidelines for record keeping and preservation of buildings. Documentation typically includes written history, full description of the property through a narrative, visual, and photographic means. HABs has developed two kinds of formats, a short format and an outline format to guide historians in researching and writing reports. At a minimum, each building or site should have a formal report with graphic documentation, i.e. measure drawings and photographs, which you have. Because the property is a contributing structure in our Madison Civic and Commercial Historic District, we urge using the outline format developed by HABs as part of its guideline for documentation. And I can provide you with a copy of this if you don't already have it, but it's nps.gov/HABs history guidelines, basically. So the document 1 survey, I don't know, is it Michael, if I can just enter Michael, our huge helper. Do you want to just pop that up for a moment?
What one would you like?
So we can share the screen and see.
What one? What number?
Number 1. Start at number 1. I hear bells. Oh, there we go. And whistles. There we go. So yes, and that's something that was prepared prior to this for sale of the property, and we find that to be adequate. We were wondering, would it be appropriate to include a relatively high resolution aerial photo, Google Map, to show the site in a surrounding context, and or a borough map indicating the site's relationship to the larger community. Let's say this is adequate, but these were just comments that came up about how to make that siting of the property more complete as a documentation record. Document number 2, Michael, could you pop that up, please?
No.
And that's the HABs drawings, Historic American Building Survey drawings. One of the concerns is these are scaled, but there are no visible dimensions. We would like to see dimensions added into this plan. Given that so much of this is happening online, you cannot be sure that this is going to ever be transmitted in a way, in a static set of plans where one could scale off of it reliably. And I think it would be helpful, at least major dimensions be inserted in the building. We were also looking for a building section cutting right along the ridge line of the roof, because that should show us probably the most characteristic element of a theater, which is that it's got a sloping floor, it's got the fly section in the back behind the stage. And I think those sections as an interior section might, rather than just the exterior elevation, would be very revealing and would be very helpful for the documentation of the building. The drawings should include information about the original building elements that survive. In other words, call out if we are asking for the preservation of that Lions Theater plaque and the wooden ticket booth, can they be called out on this drawing or a copy of this drawing so that those elements can be identified visually in that way? The plans address currently visible features, many of which are additions that cover up original elements. What's inside? Some elements peek out. Is there any way to show the old plaster ceiling? Is there any way to document some of the original materials of the theater that have been covered up with late 20th century additions? The drawings should distinguish between the original components of the building and the subsequent changes that were made. Drawing of the roof structural system is also needs to be documented. The steel truss roof is really very distinctive in this case because we believe this is the first use of a steel frame building in our downtown historic district. Hartley Dodge also has a steel truss frame at this point. Hartley Dodge building was built in 1932 to 35. So this is, while it is, the steel frame was well in use in the United States by the 1920s, but it seems that it is the first use of that in Madison. That you can sort of see it on the elevation. You can see where the pilasters reflect. There are steel beams, and the roof trusses. I think having that documented would be an important characteristic of the engineering of this building. Thank you for that. Michael, could you pop up document number 3, please? Okay. Not going to read all 6 pages of this. This is fairly boilerplate and I think needs to be edited to fit the specifics of this project. It would be helpful if is there a context that puts, or a way to put this in context to explain this treatment procedure, that it is for a theater building from 1927 that is being demolished as part of a new construction. I think it doesn't explain all by itself why this is even here. So I think whether there's some kind of introductory context or refers to a different document, that would be important. We agree in your section 1.2 summary, which we see here, of the 3 elements that are to be preserved. Part of the construction schedule farther down in this text includes a plan for storage and handling of historic materials and indicates that these items will be stored off-site in a place with, quote, no security or climate control. Later on in the document, it says, section 3.1, it says that the historic materials are to be protected. So we would very much like to see these elements protected and not have them sitting out with no security and climate control. It seems that those 2 parts of this treatment plan are in contradiction. We would suggest discussing, if necessary, with the Borough of Madison, the possibility of storing those elements somewhere within the town. They're not so big, and there may be a safe place at the Borough Garage or elsewhere. I haven't asked them that specifically, but I think there has to be a little bit of concern for their security, both from being lifted up and also from weather and other elements. So we would appreciate your pursuing that. Yeah, generally this part just all needs editing because there are comments that don't apply that are talking about renovation of a building, and that's not what this is at all. Is this section supposed to be related to the post office and railroad station securing? It wasn't clear to me from this bit of document. Is that what this is supposed to be about, or is that happening in a different document? Mr. Ross?
So this was more of a guide for the contractor so that they understood the correct way to approach dismantling and salvaging historic materials. The post office and the structural stuff would need to be done through shoring drawings by a licensed structural engineer. So that would be a separate component from what I'm submitting.
Okay. All right, just wondering whether how this overlapped, and you're saying this particular text does not overlap with that work for the other buildings.
Correct.
Okay, so then this really can be tightened to deal just with this building and not with renovations or other things. And I'm sure you can do that. The next item is the photo documentation, and that's document 4. We will spare everybody on the call from looking at 47 photographs, although they're all terrific, and they're they seem to be good photographs, and appreciate that they're all well identified in this way. We do feel they are inadequate in documenting the entire building, specifically in talking about, again, elements that are behind or under or might be part of an earlier fabric that might be visible. Photographs depicting the makeup and consistency of the walls, the truss system, the basement, the roof, which give more detail and insight into original construction, should be added. P.S. I'm glad you're taking copious notes. I'm happy to send you my notes at the conclusion of this as well. If as you're doing particularly the section drawing, photos of the historic, you may do probes, you're gonna have to poke some holes. If that reveals anything worth taking a picture of, we would love to see that photograph. Your photo documentation, we feel, should include individual historic photos. Right now, your historic photos are bundled into the posters, into the timeline. Pulling those out, sourcing those as a subset of the photo documentation, historic images that are available, annotated as to, a source, a possible date, where the views were taken from, street level. There are, we recognize that it's hard to do research right now because of COVID. There are a lot of archival sources that are not available. The Save Madison Theater actually has a number of very good historic images that would be good additions to this documentation. And I think a conversation with them about using those images might make that a good use. They have a website, but as we know, websites come and go, and hopefully this documentation is archivally stored and has a longer life than a website. So I would encourage you to do that. I would also encourage you to know that the Madison Eagle, which has been published, our local hometown paper, which has been published since 1873, I believe, is now digitized and online. So you don't have to be in Madison to access that, and there may be some images or some advertising materials that could be helpful, that could come out of that as well.
Janet?
Yes, sir. Dave?
access to that archive is limited to holders of library cards in
Only
Madison.
Madison library cards.
Yes.
I'm sure we could work with Mr. Ross. Some of us might have a library card if you were interested in pursuing that detail. I think we could do that.
And the Historical Society has an account as well.
Right, right. But just saying, because we know the Historical Society is closed, other resources are closed right now. It's very frustrating for the researcher, but that is quite a trove, and the fact that it's online, kudos to the people who made that project happen, Dave Luber. So thank you.
Among others.
Among others, right. Okay, document 5, the poster, proposed poster number 1. I think you started to answer what, I was a little confused what this was. This is not a kind of standard documentation thing to have a poster. It's not a typical HABS element.
Michael, could you go up to the next poster, the next exhibit?
Thank you. Michael? He's stepped out perhaps. There he is.
There.
There you are. Can you throw up number 5, please? Document number 5.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I think I understand from you that this is a work in progress. May I describe it that way? And may be something that's part of an interior or extra. It may be part of a future interpretive plaque of some sort at the building. In which case, I think you need to know more about where that might be situated in order to consider materials, size, viewer access, to design up those things. But again, the individual images that appear in here, particularly the historic photographs, would be great as incorporated in the documentation as just separate images. This, I'll just say, probably needs more work as the new building develops. Number 6 is the other poster, the cinema timeline. There we go. Yeah. Again, interesting. I like the idea of it, putting it in, in a larger context of what happens to theaters. And I think, yeah, it's got some interesting ideas in it. Again, we'll see how that best could be used as the new design for the space comes in, and what this might serve. But instead of relying on just a timeline or a poster as your narrative piece, I think the biggest concern is following HAB's protocol to include a written history and description of the building based on primary sources as possible. Footnoted histories, a bibliography, a narrative description of the building and its materials. Don't just photograph the tapestry brick wall on the facade. Describe that it's tapestry brick, popular in the 1920s, maybe tie its usage to other buildings of the period, including even one on Main Street in Madison. Hollow tile terracotta walls were mentioned a number of times during the hearings last year. Where are they? I don't see them in the documentation. There are photographs that show a patterned marble, maybe, on the interior. Is this really marble? Is this original to the building? What is it? What's under the floor under that old carpeting? I think a description of the materials, we can see things in the photographs, but before the building goes down, I think it's very important to have it documented to say this is tapestry bic, this is concrete block, this is terracotta tile, this is steel framing, this is a concrete floor, whatever it is. That's just my bias. The materiality is a very important part of this. So being able to have a narrative, not just of the history of the theater, but of its physical composition, I think is an important part to HAB's documentation. And document 7, I don't know that you need to pull it up, Michael, don't worry, it's 25-minute video. We're not going to watch it. It was charming to watch you walk around the building, and I do like that you can freeze a frame and see anything you want. But again, it's very much the surface that is there right now. It doesn't give us insight of what's behind the walls, and we kind of all know there's something behind the walls. And it's also, frankly, this is not likely to have a long life as a piece of documentation because these formats are changing so fast. I think that's why we're still relying on black and white photo technology that is 100 years old to document architecture, because this is interesting but may in fact not be very, very long range documentation. So I'm not critiquing its inclusion, I'm just saying it needs to be, it's only a small piece of this. The more traditional documentation items, the black and white photographs, the narrative description are all the more important because they're likely to last. So this is good stuff. This is a lot of stuff. I don't think we're talking about impossible things to do. There's certainly an amount of work, but I think for the quality of documentation that you suggest that you and your firm want to do, these would be important additions to what has already been presented, which clearly represents a lot of work. And I fully appreciate doing this in the heat in a building without electricity. There's a lot of work that's been done already, certainly.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I could. First of all, Barton, maybe we should have done this at the beginning. I know some of the HPC members are already familiar with your work, but can you take a couple of minutes and just put your qualifications, both educational, professional, on the record so that both the HPC members that aren't familiar with your extensive experience, as well as those in the public that are here, can hear that. So can you do that for a couple minutes?
Sure. I am a historic preservation consultant by my career and have had extensive experience doing documenting.
Madam Chair, I meant Barton.
Mr. Barton, right? Mr. Ross?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know. I'm sorry.
Not you. You're the chairwoman.
I'm the chairwoman. But I know where I'm
questioning the chair.
Okay.
I just, for the benefit of everybody that's not familiar with Mr. Ross's experience, I'd like him to just spend a few minutes to put that on.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, we know Ms. Foster is eminently qualified, but I'll go through my qualifications as well. I have a architecture degree from Virginia Tech. I have a master's degree from Columbia in construction administration. I have a master's degree from University of Pennsylvania in historic preservation, and I have 20 years of experience in the architecture field. And really all I've done is historic preservation all around the Mid-Atlantic and the East Coast. And I currently have been on the board of directors for Preservation New Jersey for the past 6 years. And I actually currently serve as the president of Preservation New Jersey. And I also work with many towns. I'm the historic preservation consultant for Millburn, Neptune, Plainfield, North Plainfield, and I also am the planning board architect for the township of Montclair. So really, historic preservation is my passion, and I love doing it. So that's really it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bart. Listen, I'm a layman, and I looked at the materials that you prepared, and they were very impressive to me. We just heard an extensive list of comments and critiques, including questions as to whether you're complying with the applicable standards. One example that I can recall, though it's been a year ago, is that there were photos in the record of the roof trusses already. So those exist. We've all seen them, and that's one example. Then a lot of the other comments dealt with seeking to have us do intrusive testing and photography in walls and under carpets and all of that. So jumped out at me. I'm sure you want to respond to the laundry list.
Oh, you're frozen here.
Mr. Wilson, right, you cut out right before you made the right after you made the pejorative statement of a laundry list. And just for the record, Ms. Foster is only one member of the commission. I think other members of the commission also have comments. They might yield their time to Ms. Foster, but they still, I don't know if you want to handle them separately or you want to just handle it as we go. Do you want to handle it? It's fine with me. The format is up to the commission members, and they've kind of filed a loose hearing for this today. So it's, there isn't going to be much necessary, but.
What other commission members have to say. Mr. Wilson, how's that?
Whatever your preference. I did not intend the use of the term laundry list to be pejorative, as Mr. Test characterized it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
It's a long list.
That's okay. Well, I think Mr. Ross, Mary Ellen Lenahan, I don't think we've met, so thank you. I think the materials we received, took a look at, were very, very helpful. And when I was reviewing them, I'm thinking about, well, what do we really need to document this for posterity, for the future? And it really is a history of the theater and the construction of the theater. And I think Janet has listed different things, but that's really what the overarching purpose is. Like one of the things I mentioned was terracotta tiles, because that was a big thing. Mr. Wilson, you've mentioned some pictures, and I think there are very good pictures in some of your presentations, probably Mr. Gertler's presentations, about the theater and part of the history of the theater. So I think those are some of the things that you can think of. Janet mentioned some of the sources you might use, and it is hard now because everything's closed, but I still think you can get some of the sources. Save Madison Theater, yes. The Eagle, yes. Dave, I'm volunteering. The Historical Society may be able to help you too, in terms of that. So there are areas where you can have a lot of assistance in this. I think the video was one area I did want to ask you about, and that was, I watched the video when you got up to the 4th floor and took a picture of the roof, but you didn't, I know there are doors there, but you didn't go inside there. And I know you have one picture of the old, I think it's the old ceiling. Is there anything else that you might provide on that?
So truth be told, my assistant did the video. So.
Oh, okay.
But I do know that the door was inaccessible. So
okay.
The door was locked and we didn't want to break it. So.
No, of course not. Of course not. Mr. Wolfson, I don't know, is that accessible? When this was going on, I went on a partial tour of the building, but at the time I couldn't go to certain spots, so I'm not sure what the prior tour did and how much it covered.
Specifically, you're asking which element is accessible? Well,
yeah, because Mr. Ross said that the top floor, the ceiling, which I assume, I don't know what's up there. Well, sometime you'll probably get to look at it. It might be the ceiling. I know in the picture that Mr. Ross, one of his photos has pictures of what looks to be an old picture of the original theater with the original ceiling. I think it's in the picture with the ticket booth.
It's a photo of a theater that is presumably very similar. That's from Save Madison. We don't
Okay,
I'm not sure we know, we don't have I'm not aware that there's an early photo of this theater, but it was like,
okay.
there were others very similar in style. So I think that was the point, but it does make you wonder if it's very similar, is there something like that?
Right.
Is there any evidence of something like that in this building?
And we will tell you, we have a picture from the Waverly Coffee Shop in Madison of part of the front that shows the movie theater, and I think those of the two retail sides, but just part of that. And we can send that to you. I don't know if we'll be able to find something else out about that.
Just in answer to your question, I'm getting information that the building is riddled with asbestos and mold, and to do invasive testing and access certain closed areas is unsafe.
Okay, and I think that was one of the reasons why I couldn't do a full tour when the original.
Mr. Wolfson, if you're going to provide any evidence into the record here, it needs to be sworn in, obviously. I don't know where you got that information from, but just confirm it in writing with me, please, before we accept that fact. All right, thank you.
Mr. Testa, I think we both agreed at the beginning that this is not a hearing.
Right.
Right, but you're also bringing information that's not provided to us about asbestos, riddled with asbestos, et cetera. So I prefer to, if you're going to make that statement, then just back it up. That's all.
Okay, but you can do that with a letter.
Representatives from Saks and talk about it. They're on the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. We didn't know. Mr. Wolfson, other than you and Mr. Ross, we didn't know who else was on the line.
Hi, this is Brandon Aliano. I'm with Saxum. We've gone through and done asbestos testing as well as lead paint and other hazardous materials, and we should have that report shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm also reminded that asbestos is referenced in the structural and historic preservation reports that were in evidence at the hearings.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the more reason, if I can pipe up, that a narrative document that may, again, set the context for this, say documentation was carried out here, there, and everywhere, but not these places because inaccessible, hazardous materials. We know this right now, but again, as documentation for the posterity, it's important, and it's easy to write that in as a way of setting a context. So were there other comments from Mr. Ross? I guess is the first to back up on, and then Mary Ellen?
You disappeared. One of the things that I really liked was your timeline. And I think when I was reading through it, I said, hey, this is great. It's got these different points of history here, but not a lot about the theater itself or Madison. But the conceptual idea of that was great. And I think your idea of having it as, probably a board or something like that is great too, either inside or outside. So I think it's the first, well, it's not the first time I've seen a timeline, but it is one of the better uses for a timeline. And I think it really lends itself to this kind of project.
Okay.
I think that's it for me, Jen.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were done before. I'm sorry, Mary Ellen. I'm just, yeah, this is hard. Dave, do you have any comments that you'd like to add to this?
Well, only in terms of maybe providing some help. The Historical Society has just now received access to their offices. Literally, we couldn't get into that portion. The library was closed. It is just within the past week that members of the Historical Society have had access. And to the extent that historical photos of the building may be available, you should be able to contact them now, and they could alert you to what's available. In terms of the Eagle Archive, I have a user guide that we prepared for using the archive, and I could certainly make that available to you. Jeff Gertler, if he is obviously still involved in the project, lives in Madison and could get access to the archive. I could say, well, if you came into the library, you can have access to it. But at this point, public access to the library is limited to 45 minutes for browsing, so it's not worth it. For that, I apologize. And the reason that we limited it to Madison was because of agreement we had with the owners of the Madison Eagle and owners of the copyright to the materials that are in the archive. And so that we are limited by the agreement we have with them. But the archive is accessible. It gives you access to every single issue of the paper going back to before the building was built, and would be accessible. It's easy to use, and I have a user guide that we can make available to Mr. Ross. And contact the Madison Historical Society. They have a website. They are as of this week now, in the offices, and you could query them in terms of photo documentation of the structure of the building, and they could tell you what they have in their archives. That famous picture of the building under construction with the trusses came from our archive, photo archive, I believe. And so that would be a suggestion. But they are in the offices on Tuesdays at this point in time. And if you contact them through the website, they can respond in terms of what we have in our archives, paper archives and photo archives.
Great, thank you, Dave. Let's see who else is on. Max, do you have anything to add? Any comments on this?
No, since I'm new to this, I'm going to kind of yield to you, Janet, as the my mouthpiece on this one. But it's been very informative so far, so I'm definitely glad to learn.
Thank you. Carmine, you've been following this. Do you have anything to add about theater documentation?
Not too much about that, Janet. The only thing that I did hear, and people have asked me, are we still going to have a small movie theater in the scope of the renovation of this building? And I said to them, I will bring it up at this meeting. But the last time I heard, I think we were thinking of having a small movie theater in the back of the building. Am I right on that, or am I far-fetched?
That was a plan that was in our resolution as a hopeful item. That has been overturned by the zoning board and cannot be required. And I have to say, current events have sort of proved that to be not wrong. So no, the developer is free to suggest that, but it's not required. It's not a condition, and was overturned by the zoning board that we could not make that a condition. So sorry you missed that part.
All right, thank you.
Of course. All right. Let's, for the moment, close the historic preservation commentary and move to public comment. I know we have some public, we have people interested in this subject.
Janet, before we move to public comment,
Okay.
let's give Mr. Wolfson an opportunity to address any
I'm
comments
sorry.
for Ross.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, don't be
Without you there to poke me.
Thank you both. No, thank you both. I'd like Barton to respond to the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So, I mean, I appreciate all of your comments. They're all great things. However, you know, going through the conditions, what I was given as my mandate to do on this project was only condition 5, 6, and 8. So I was only told to document the site through detailed measure drawings, photos, and video recordings. You know, I wasn't given like a mandate to do a building section through the building. That would be neat, but that would take a lot of time. Historic photos or even a history of the building, you know, that was not part of my scope of work to satisfy the conditions. Video recording we did do. Condition 6, you know, requiring that the plaque, the chandelier, and the ticket booth be safely removed for reuse or replication. So we tried to prepare a procedure for the safe removal of those items. We talked to contractors. We explained about the, you know, the item you had in the original resolution about getting shoring drawings to protect the post office and the other historic structures in the area. So all of that has been communicated, and I believe the owner knows what to do on that. And then condition 8, the permanent interpretive material summary of the building's history, and, you know, including some historic photos. You know, that's an easy one to pull those out. I don't know, you know, the source. We can provide the source that we gave. I think that's an easy thing. As is the, you know, adding dimension strings in the plans. That's an easy thing to do. I agree with the chair that you know, just scaling them might not be enough. So those are 2 easy things we can do. But really, all the other things, I agree, they're all very neat and probably would be very informative, but they weren't part of our, you know, mission or scope of work for this project to satisfy the conditions.
And the reason that the discussion for the scope of work was based upon reading of the conditions. So it sounds like there are things that we can do to respond to some of the conditions, including the dimensions, including accessing, if we can promptly, some photographs, some of which are in the record, explain in a letter or a document why the building, which was established during the hearings, is a wreck and is unsafe, and thus access to certain areas is unsafe and is limited. I think those are the kind of things we can do. Our request would be that the commission confirm that, subject to doing those things, that we're in compliance with these conditions.
And would it be, let me see if I'm on. No.
Yeah.
Let me speak real quick, if you don't mind, Ms. Lanahan, just to be clarified. When you say those conditions, I would like you to outline for us specifically which conditions you do not agree to comply with, Mr. Wolfson, just so we can understand that for the record.
Okay, I'll go through my notes as best I can. Barton, is there a requirement under the HAB standard for a written history and narrative?
I can answer that for you. Yes, there is, and
I'm asking my expert.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Ross?
There's many different levels of HABs, so I didn't, you know, it wasn't specific whether it was level 1, 2, 3. So we went with the least expensive one.
Okay, so you use the least expensive alternative. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But one that satisfies the HAB standard, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Ross, just out of curiosity, which HAB standard are you referring to? Level 1, level 2, or the lowest standard?
We went with the baseline lower standard.
Okay, and what's your basis for determining that this is the lowest standard? It's a key contributing, sorry, it's a contributing structure that's a historically designated structure in the zone.
Well, I had wished it would have said level 1 or level 2, depending on what exactly the resolution wanted us to do. So in light of that it left it open-ended, we did the lower standard.
Okay, you wanted a Google map or some kind of aerial depiction to give more context. That's easy enough to do. We can do that, right, Barton?
Yes.
Okay, and we already talked about putting some dimensions and scaling on the drawings that you've done.
Yes.
And what is entailed with doing a building section?
So as the chair said, that'd be a drawing doing a cross section through the entire building, so you could see all the different levels of the building and ideally also the structural system at the attic.
We've already heard that you can't have access to the attic and other areas in the building, so that sounds like it's a difficult, if not impossible, thing to do.
It would definitely be difficult, yes.
Okay, so
Now, your structural engineer did go in there, correct, Mr. Wolfson?
yes, as did the board, as did your
Okay.
commissions, yeah.
Mr. Ross, would you be able to utilize the documentation from the structural engineer to work with that or no?
I have no idea. I've never seen that documentation.
I would suggest maybe at least give it an attempt. There was a discussion of a section of the dimension drawings, correct, Ms. Foster?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think.
we already said he would do it.
Yeah.
Or I just wasn't sure. Didn't hear. Okay.
No, I didn't hear that he said he would do it, but.
Oh, I'm
section-
sorry.
A section drawing, I think, of all these things, I recognize that's hard, but that is sort of the money shot of drawing. If we're going to do drawings and photographs, that is the money shot of showing this building as a theater, because every other elevation and plan that we have doesn't quite reveal the structural, the shape, the things that made this a purpose-built theater. You don't see that it has the sloped floor. You don't see the theater projections to the rear of the building. You don't see the sequence of space from lobby to auditorium spaces. I think that is a critical visual representation, would be so important in the documentation of this through a series of plans. And doing a section of all of my laundry list, and I'll own the term laundry list, but this was intended to be a whole series of things that would be doable. Not to say I don't like this, I do like this, but here are very specific things to make it better. But absolutely, a section drawing would be the most critical, the most important way of documenting this building as a movie theater going forward.
Well, I'm just a layperson, but I do note the testimony at the hearing that the interior of the building has been completely renovated and has no relevance to the historic significance and the components. I don't know if that can be done, but if it was such a critical element and it was called out as a condition, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. I suggest we put that aside because we're agreeing on a number of things. Why don't we continue to go through it and see what we can agree to? Right. You can add note.
Yeah, you might just take a look at the engineer's report, the earlier reports. I call it drawings. I think drawings in there, and maybe in Mr. Gertler's reports too. I don't know if cross section. No, Jack, no. Okay.
Okay, so there was a request that we call
No, just so you know, you lagged again.
Original building elements to survive rather than the verbal description that we've already provided. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, try that again. That just.
Yeah, sorry. There was a request that original building elements to survive be called out on the drawings. I assume that's just a matter of adding notes to the drawings, Mr. Ross?
Yeah, we have no problem doing that.
Great. We talked about the intrusive testing that would be required to get to the plaster ceiling, et cetera, and why that's a problem. There was a request on document 3, Mr. Ross, that it be made more specific to this project. Is that something that can be done rather easily?
Yeah, we can try to clean up that document and, as the chair said, make it less boilerplate and a little more specific for the theater.
Okay. Do you have a reaction to the request that perhaps we were observed with the borough?
Mr. Wolfson, you have to repeat that. We didn't get it.
I'm sorry. There was a suggestion that perhaps we store the elements to be preserved with the borough. What's your reaction to that?
If that's passable, I'm sure the owner could be amenable to that too. So yes, if that's a possibility, we'd love to hear about it.
Was there, not to interrupt you, since we're on that specific subject, was there any inquiry as to, some alternatives for the safekeeping of it if potentially the borough is not available on that?
Nothing specific to me.
We're in the process of sourcing resources to perform that task.
Okay.
Because there seemed to be, there was a contradiction in there. One said, it says, we're not going to do anything. And the other one said, and it seemed to be right, that yes, we are going to do something about this.
We understand our obligation to preserve the elements that have to be reused or
Okay.
in the new building. So I'm sorry if we made that confusing. We're certainly going to access photos that were already in your record at the hearing, the earlier hearing. We will make an effort to access the Madison Eagle and the Historic Society, God willing, with conditions. We appreciate the specific information, sir. Thank you. I think Mr. Ross already indicated he can pull out and indicate sourcing for the individual photos off of the posters. There was a question on the timeline, which is document 6, as to, I guess it doesn't strictly meet the HABS protocol. Mr. Ross, did you have a comment on document 6 and the comments you heard?
So on that document, we were actually trying to address condition 8 about interpretive material and the history of the building. So I think we can pull out the historic photos and their sourcing to try to help you guys. And then I think that will kind of serve as a basis moving forward for some of the interpretive material that will eventually be designed with the building.
Okay, that's the limitation on the notes I took. I'm sorry if I missed anything significant.
No, I think.
Just so you understand too, Mr. Wolfson, the commission's expert, John Hatch, is in the process of completing his review of Mr. Ross's materials. He anticipates preparing a summary report. It's probably going to be only 2 or 3 pages long, to provide to you, and I'll exchange it to you with a list of these items again, so you have them for ease of reference as well. So it'll be my cover letter with breaking down the discussions that we had today with the commentary, and then enclosing a copy of Mr. Hatch's report.
But again, it's not markedly dissimilar from the comments that the rest of the group had independently come up with. I guess my question in the laundry list, is there any place in this simple documentation to be a little more explicit in talking about materials? Identifying not just as a plan, but the materiality of the building.
By way of a narrative, ma'am?
A narrative, a memo, a something, because that is not necessarily captured in the drawings or photographs about that are the basis of this.
We definitely can take a run at trying to address that. I'm sorry if I didn't understand that request clearly.
Right. I think you can, and I think as a context for understanding drawings and plans, it's just important to talk about what the building is made of, and seeing that, describing it, is an important part of the documentation. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be expensive to produce. I think you have a lot of that information already. I will encourage Barton to absorb that into his work.
Yeah, a lot of that's been presented as testimony when we discuss the demolition. So.
Right. And I don't think, we're not asking to absorb in all the engineering reports and different reports that happened as part of the lead up to this. It would be very helpful, and I'm not sure if we're asking the borough or who, that eventually the documentation of the theater can include the probably foot-thick paperwork that documents all those reports that went in as part of that review, because that is documentation as well. but each piece was prepared for a specific little slice of this. And I look at this documentation project as sort of putting an umbrella over it and pulling it all together.
Take a run at that, for
Yeah.
sure. I think the only things that my client is suggesting is onerous would be the building section and the intrusive testing.
And I will back off on the intrusive testing. You're going to see something there, and even in your material, and if you say there's a plaster ceiling above this, we can't access it because of hazardous materials, or there is no plaster ceiling, it's tin, or there is, I don't know. I've never been inside or haven't been inside for a long, long time.
Peter, just out of clarification, they did not do the asbestos removal yet, correct?
I don't know that.
All right.
Brandon?
We have not, no.
Okay, so I would imagine that once you go through that process, you're going to be taking down the asbestos first before demolition. That's just a normal standard under the UCC. And
Yeah, but there's also the issue of lead paint too.
understood. What I'm saying is it might be a time if you can, I'm just suggesting it, safely go in there and do some documentation at that point in time while that's process. I don't know if you can or not, but I'm just giving you food for thought here on that. Because when you start to strip away the layers, you might be able to see it then, is my point. So I don't know if it's safe to do. I don't know if it can be done safely. But it's another alternative.
Yeah. I'm not sure Barton's scope of work is going to be included to have a hazmat suit, so.
Understood.
We're understood. I'm going to push real hard back on Barton and the team, though, to get us a section drawing, though. That would be, as I said, that would be the most important part of sort of completing documentation for this building in a way that would honor its unique building type. So anyway, you can discuss.
Barton, can you explain to me, and well, it sounds like there's an expectation that we're going to go beyond tonight, although our request is that we be deemed in compliance subject to our agreement to comply with most of the things on the list. But Barton, maybe you can educate our mutual client on the phone or the Zoom what this would require of you.
Can't hear.
Barton,
Yeah.
what would a cross section require you to do?
So if you think of a building, if you go up a few feet and you had a buzz saw and you cut all the way through the building, a floor plan is what you see looking down. That's what you draw. A reflected ceiling plan is what you would see looking up. A section drawing is basically doing a buzz saw, but the saw is angled vertically and you're cutting through the entire building that way. So what the chair is saying is she wants one basically cut through the gable of the whole building so you can see the various levels and how they change throughout the building.
Would you physically be cutting through the building?
No. It's just a way to understand what you're drawing.
It's a mind game, as if you could cut through the building. It's an important way of seeing this building.
And how would you do that? That requires invasive testing to figure out what's in each layer?
No, it requires a lot of measuring. It's part of the measured drawing process.
Yes, I think by doing it, we would have to, remove ceiling coverings, which may uncover what the chair was talking about, understanding the materiality of the building. There's probably a lot of drop ceilings and things like that, so you'd have to remove acoustic tiles and things like that, so you can get the full height, and you'd have to then measure, basically remeasure things that we didn't measure vertically through the building in order to do it.
Well, I'm being told by a principal of my client that we can have Mr. Gertler do a section of the existing walls as he understands it. Just not going to be able to give you the money shot. It sounds like it's an extensive undertaking. and frankly, above and beyond certainly what we understood these conditions to anticipate.
Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, the second part, not be able to do what shot?
I think that your co-chairwoman called it the money shot.
Money shot.
So I referred it to as the money shot. But I'm getting information both from my expert and from the construction people that are on our team that the money shot is indeed a money shot in terms of the amount of time and expense that it will incur. And I'm rereading the conditions, and I'm just, the client is amenable to doing most everything on the list, as we've indicated. But that we think goes above and beyond certainly the language of the approvals and even what would have been anticipated at that time.
And just to make sure you understand where we're referring to in the measure drawings, it's actually specific language that's utilized in the resolution under paragraph 5. Numerated paragraph 5, it says demolition shall not commence, et cetera, until has completely documented the site through detailed measure drawings, photographs, et cetera. And then it actually references specifically the Secretary of Interior standard for architecture documentation, which actually references specifically the HAB standards in there.
Okay, well, I hate to drag this out, but Mr. Ross, is a cross-section required under the HAB standards?
Again, it depends on what level you're doing.
The level that you refer to and that you were charged to do and that is not specified in the condition.
Fortunately, it was not what I was charged to do, correct.
Mr. Ross, can I ask you a question? A contributing structure in a historic district that's designated as a contributing structure under the national and state standards, would that be considered a level 1 historic site?
No, you can apply whatever HAB standards you want in terms of how you want to do the documentation of the building. So yes, certain buildings would demand a certain type of HABs level, although you can document it, you know, in the various levels based on what you're charged with doing. So in this instance, we did the lower level.
Can you explain to me what the definition specifically is of the lower levels of the tiers? Just briefly, level 1, 2 versus the lower level, whatever that might be. I don't even know what level they go to. So,
I mean, I don't have it in front of me. So,
Mr. Ross, how many levels do they have?
so as far as I know, there are 3 different levels of the HABs that I've worked on.
I would respectfully request the commission to consider what we consider to be overwhelming testimony regarding the bastardizing of the theater prior to my client's purchase of it, and the horrendous condition the theater is in.
Again, sorry.
Considering that request for the cross.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, you left us at the.
Sorry, I was just saying I would respectfully request that the commission consider the combination of the bastardizing of the building over time prior to my client's owning of it, as well as the horrible condition that was documented before you a whole year ago in consideration of the building section.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does the quote horrible condition of the building that was documented, how is that documented, and can that be included then as addenda to this material so that in one place a future researcher might understand more what's going on here?
We're happy to take as much of the record that we provided and others provided last year and include that in this package as the commission wants.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Testa.
Yeah, I just wanted to again remind.
I need some help.
I want to remind you also that Mr. Hatch has not completed his report yet. He's the expert retained by the commission to also assist the commission with making a decision on the technical review of this item. So, you know, at this point in time, it seems to me the commentary seems fair that it might be premature I leave it up to the commission if you want to reserve on this, carry it for the next meeting, allow them to come back with the commentary that we've asked for, to take another review at it, to see at that point in time, maybe we'll be in a better position to make a determination as to whether or not he is in compliance with those conditions set forth in the resolution. Certainly there's items out there that were not included that could be included in there. And there's obviously some other concerns of the safekeeping of those three items, the chandeliers, the ticket booth, and the center gable, amongst other items that we had talked about in length today. But, without Mr. Hatch's final report to you as well on this, I leave it up to you if you want to make a determination on whether or not to carry it or make a decision on what Mr. Wolfson is requesting, which I believe, Mr. Wolfson, I don't want to quote you here wrong, so just make sure I'm correct here. That you're asking for essentially a conditional approval or conditional decision of compliance, subject to the discussion that we had today on what needs to be satisfied. Correct? And again, I don't mean to I'm not trying to misquote you. I'm just trying to make sure we have it down correctly.
I think you stated it probably better than I did. There's 2 items out of the list that we all went through that are a problem for us. We're going to do all the rest. So we'd ask.
And just. I'm sorry, Peter. You cut out one last time. It's not a good time for you to cut out, unfortunately. But if you could just repeat that one more time.
Yeah, I'll try. Sorry for the glitch.
All right.
So the request is that we be found. I know there's some public that you want to hear from too, but the request is that we be found to be compliant with the conditions 5, 6, and 8, subject to us doing the things that we've agreed to do tonight. That's the request. And I know these are difficult times, but Mr. Hatch was aware of tonight's meeting.
Well, we made him aware,
Okay.
but he couldn't get here. And, I guess we got the reports last Monday.
Yeah, we submitted them when we were requested to submit them.
Right. Well, look, it was August 4th to try to get you on here for today, but look, we're all professionals.
I mean, that's fine. For us to get Mr. Hatch here, that was short notice. But be that as it may, if we were talking about a conditional approval, that would be all the items listed with the 2 exceptions.
And let's clarify what the 2 exceptions are. I guess the public also makes sure that they understand too. What are the 2 exceptions, Mr. Wolfson, that you're referring to again?
The cross-
section and invasive testing.
I don't think we're requesting invasive testing. Maybe that's not a right phrase for it, right, Ms. Foster? What are you asking for specifically?
Non-invasive testing, but if in the process of doing other work, there were reveals into materials that would allow, again, this discussion of what the materiality of the building is. We see some of that in existing photographs that were taken. There's a wall of patterned marble, for instance. We know, I don't think it's invasive testing to pull up a corner of the carpet and say, oh, it's wood underneath, or it's linoleum underneath, or it's something underneath. It's got a material that's not carpet. If the ceiling above is plaster, I would like to see that. That's not invasive. It's looking behind the surface to what the actual original materiality of the building is.
I think there's a drop ceiling, I think, right now.
Yeah, we have
it's full of drop ceilings and plywood partitions, but what's the theater really made of? I think that's what the point of the documentation is for me.
Right. So we're going to submit any additional photographs we can that will better document that than anything. We will, of course, lift up carpets and look behind curtains that does not require intrusive testing. There have been discussions about penetrating walls, I thought, for terracotta and other things. So that, I think, is what the client was reacting to. Additionally, we would
Terracotta's already.
certainly,
Hold on. I'm sorry.
again,
Peter, out again.
going to do hazmat suit. During demolition, we would document any.
Peter, stop. You're going out. I'm sorry. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right now.
Okay, so hopefully you heard me say that, of course, we'll lift up carpets and move back curtains and anything that can be done without intrusive. Additionally, we would offer during demolition to document anything that becomes visible that we would hope would be useful to you and supplement the submission and the package that we are assembling with your help.
That's very good. Thank you. So then that really brings us down to just the cross section. Correct?
Yes, if we,
I think so.
Since we have an agreement on what we're talking about on the other thing, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Can I don't want to cut you off, Mr. Wolfson or Mr. Ross. Can I open this? We do need to have some public comment and see if there's any commentary from the public that may help the HPC in our thoughts about this or not. But if I may do that right now, that doesn't preclude us both from continuing to think about this in different ways. So, Preservation Commission members, do we agree that we will open this now to public comment? Each member of the public requesting to speak. Michael, help me out. Raise their hand. What's your protocol for public access to this?
If they're watching on a computer or a phone, they need to use the raise a hand feature. If you are dialing in, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Once you are called upon, the first things out of your mouth need to be your name and your address. Failure to do so could result in being muted and disconnected from the meeting for security reasons, as approved by mayor and council.
Okay, and you are, you are the one watching the hands and inviting people in, yes?
Correct.
Okay. So is there any member of the public who has a comment to make about the documentation?
At this point, there is nobody that has raised their hand. One person.
Two people. Okay.
Henry, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Henry Pratt, 87 Greenwood Avenue.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, I remember as a kid there being marble tile. I know that there's probably the original chandelier still in the feeder, as well as the cross section and other objects that have been identified throughout the meeting. And so I'm wondering how we're making sure that they're taking a look at those things and not just looking through the carpets and stuff. I worry that we're losing a chance to hold the developers accountable because we're not specifying what kind of planning and testing they need to do right now at this point. And also I just want to point out that there's metal barriers in the cage of the feeder itself, so the feeder is not derelict, even if there's skirmishes and stuff on the brick. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did not understand the last. You sort of faded out there, sir. You said
his mic's been shut since he's
okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
But this is recorded, so we will have that.
All right, I'll try harder next time to listen.
May I say something, Mr. Pratt? Thank you for noting those things. The chandeliers and the ticket booth. And what was the other item? There are three items that are being...
Plaque, the outside plaque.
Yes, the outside plaque on the building are the ones that are being preserved.
All right, we have one more hand raised by Sandy. Just unmute yourself, please, Sandy.
Okay, Sandy Kolakowski, Park Avenue, Madison, New Jersey. Thanks for having the meeting online. It would have been good to be able to see the video, which thanks, Michael, for posting that, but it's pretty big file, and I didn't want to look at that on the computer. I thought it would be shown tonight. I actually do also have a question about why anyone would interpret that the documentation level should be at the lowest level, because of the fact that it is a contributing building. It is the single cultural and recreational resource listed. And it was a very important building to the people of Madison. The developer understood that he was buying something in the historic district and would have to live by the rules and regulations of that. These documentation standards by the Secretary of the Interior are very clearly laid out, and a lower level one clearly would not be done for a contributing building. I'm very confused about. I appreciate that Mr. Ross that may have been his instruction, but I find it hard to believe that that would have been his desire, knowing how much he cares about historic preservation. I expected to see information about the architect of this building, when it was built, what else was in Madison, more of a history, placing it in its context. I also expected to see a lot more information about the materials that are in the building. As Mr. Pratt, I think, just mentioned, you know, there's a lot of marble in the building. Originally, the building had frescoes in it. And I appreciate that those things are behind walls and the plaster ceiling. But, you know, to say now that it's too dangerous and inaccessible to get into, it wasn't inaccessible when the engineers for the developer wanted to make the case that the building couldn't be saved. So I find that very, very disappointing and disingenuous at this point. I expected people, I guess, to act a little bit differently considering the new world. I take real exception to Ms. Foster's comment that a movie theater can no longer survive. If you think that Hollywood is going to fold up its tent and go away, I mean, I really can't believe that that's the case. I think a movie theater can. I understand that the developer, although he promised us a movie theater throughout this entire process, appealed that decision, and our zoning board allowed that appeal to prevail. But to say that you know, maybe because of COVID, it's impractical, so are retail stores impractical, and so are restaurants, but that's exactly what he'll have to be building anyway. So I don't think that that's very good reasoning. I'd like somebody, since this will be the first building that has ever been taken down in the historic district that did not have to retain its facade, I would like someone to please identify the brick that is on that building, because although Janet is telling me that it exists in another building, she'll have to tell me where, because it is a diamond molded brick that no one that I have spoken to, and I have spoken to a lot of historic preservation people, can identify that brick. It is unique to that building. It would be nice to know where it was sourced from. And that information is part of when somebody wants to take down a building, they are obligated to comply with. So I don't know why everybody's apologizing about why this is, you know, so burdensome for the developer. In my opinion, they knew where they were buying. These are the rules and regulations. They are a big firm and understand this very well. So I really feel that this report was totally inadequate. It doesn't talk anything about the history of that building. It has mistakes in it as well. I mean, I could go on forever. But again, a little tiny organization like Save Madison Theater did more research on this building than the developer who is responsible for doing it has done. That's all I have to say. Sorry, Carmen, I made you sneeze.
There are no more hands up.
All right, Sandy, thank you.
Motion to close the public comment period.
We'll close the.
I do wanted to ask actually, Mr. Ross, when you did your evaluation, did you look into the brick facade to determine if the significance of it, as one of the public comment members made the comment about?
Yeah, that's very neat and interesting, but no, that was not our charge as part of the project.
Okay, Mr. Ross, now that you're going back on some of the pieces, would it be difficult to do that? I think it's just the facade.
I'd have to defer to Mr. Wolfson on that.
Okay.
Well, if we're talking about him doing, a couple hours research to try to identify the brick and the origin, I'm sure the client will do that. You've seen how this client has performed throughout this entire process. And in my opinion, it's been first class. They have shown due respect to the commission. They have hired experts. They have worked with your experts. So if you want Mr. Ross to spend a couple hours, try to figure out the bricks that Ms. Kolakowski is interested in specifically, I'm sure the client will go for that.
I think I'm sorry to interrupt, it all points out to a comment that we've made now for 2 hours about including more information about specific materials on the building. And our first caller mentioned the marble tile, and there may be more information about the brick type. And I thought I understood that you had, on behalf of your client, said, yes, that would be something that should and could be included as a way of further documenting and describing the building, that it's made of stuff, and the stuff has historic distinction and should be described as best as possible.
We're going to supplement with a narrative, with that information, with everything on the list that we talked about, to get this package for this structure to a place that the commission's happy with based upon our discussion. While we were out to the public, my client has indicated that they are able to do a depicted section. And so they would certainly be willing to figure out the materials through non-invasive means, historic photos and other things, and plot them in such a way that there would be effectively a depicted section.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, I just don't know what a depicted section is. If you or Mr. Ross or Jan.
The client indicates that it would consist of figuring out the materials that exist and creating a cross-section based on the historical information that is available to them.
Okay.
It sounds like that's a good compromise from literally taking the chainsaw down the center of the building and revealing it all, because I recognize it's possible, but it's quite a challenge. So it sounds like there's a little bit of, how should we say, not quite imagination, but some studied assumptions about how to put, would that be fair, Barton, about how things go together, but revealing the bulk, the sloped floor, I think is very important. And if that can happen in a depicted section, with the notice on the drawing that that's what it is, that it's not a full-on measured drawing, I could agree to that as a compromise measure in order to get that bit of information into the documentation file.
Okay. And good.
Is that, you're shaking your head, Barton? Is that something that sounds?
Yeah.
It's going to be a useful thing, or is just this an exercise in humoring the chairwoman?
No, I think all information and documentation we can provide will be helpful for the record. I agree. So, yes.
Right. I had a question. Sandy, you are Save the Madison Theater. I know you have a good website and lots of information on the website that Mr. Barton would be able to access. Do you have other information that you or your group would be able to provide in terms of the history?
Ms. Lenahan, her microphone is muted as public comment period has closed. So
sorry.
necessary, we can open that back up, but her microphone is muted.
Yeah, why don't we open that up for her, just so it may help streamline this for the applicant.
I'm sorry, I should have.
Sandy needs to unmute herself if she would like to speak.
Andy?
Hi, sorry about that. Here I am. You know, there's information on our website, and in all cases, we've attributed photos where we could. There is a lot of information, as Mr. Luber has talked about, on the Madison Eagle website. So that's probably the place to go. But yeah, there's information on the website, but it's not exhaustive, and nor should it. The purpose of this is to do the exhaustive study of the building before it's demolished. And that's, you know, really not our responsibility. That's the developer's responsibility to do that. I'll try and be helpful where I can.
That's right. We're trying to look at ways to get this done.
Right. And the only thing that I would like to add is, you know, I know we keep talking about these chandeliers, but you know, those chandeliers I don't think are historic. But that wall sconce that Barton or his assistant took a picture of, that I think would be historic. And I would hope that the developer will be open to, if things are uncovered that look like they're worth preserving, to help tell the story. And if they ever change their mind and go back to their original commitment of putting a movie theater in the first floor, that those elements could be incorporated.
Well, we agree that the chandeliers are not historic. If the client during demolition comes across something that they believe is valuable and wants to retain it, they will do that.
Okay, and let us know.
Absolutely.
All right. All right, so where does that leave us now in terms of how we go forward? Mr. Wolfson, Mr. Testa? It looks like we have agreement on a conditional basis.
So we don't have the.
Our request is that the commission, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So we do not have our experts report yet. That's in final format. We just spoke briefly with him today. I did not get a chance to go into detail with him on it, just some other points. Most of the points were raised by the commission members today during our public commentary period. But I would like to have the benefit of that report before for the commission to take a review at, and for Mr. Wolfson and his client to take a review at. And from there, make a determination on whether or not to move forward. It's your commission. You can make a decision now whether make a motion to either carry this or make a motion to approve with conditions. Those conditions would have to obviously be written down as they were written down in the resolution before. The details detailing our discussions today and the commentary on that. And I'm still not really, I don't know if the one other issue of the cross section was really satisfied. Ms. Foster, was that satisfied to your liking? The depicted, was described as, I believe it's a depicted section, right, Mr. Wolfson, from your client?
Yeah.
Said it's a compromise I'm not sure I've ever seen a depicted section. I think I have an idea what it encompasses. I think it's a reasonable compromise. But
would you be able to give me just an example of one that's been done already, Peter, for review to help facilitate that issue? I'd rather Ms. Foster be aware of what the description is before she makes a decision on that, or before the commission really makes a decision on it.
Well, I didn't hear her understand it. I didn't hear her understand. I did not understand her to say that she didn't understand what we were proposing. And I think when you supplement it with our commitment, which we
stopped again.
Any other relevant information. Sorry.
No,
I did not understand the chairwoman to not understand what we were proposing. If she doesn't, then tell us. But if you supplement that with our commitment during demolition to supplement information that we come across during demolition, I think you're getting a good picture of materials and what exists, which I understood the chairwoman's concern here, that we document for future generations what this theater was and what it was made of.
Right. Thank you for that, Mr. Wolfson. In this case, I appreciate your listening to all our many concerns. That what was prepared was a good start, and we had a lot of concerns about completing it, bringing it to a level that seemed to us to make sense as a way of documenting the theater. I recognize you're interested in tidying this up, but I am very uncomfortable doing a conditional approval on a very long list of things that I think we've discussed tonight. Could we set this aside this evening, work together on making sure that the lists that we have prepared are pairing up, that the consultants can do it, that everything is going to be ready. And frankly, some of this could well be done by the time we meet again, and we just check it off, and things that won't be done because they require maybe more time or access to the building at a particular time. I think we'd be very clear about what we're both agreeing to. I'm personally feeling like we've come a long way in working together, and I'm very pleased to do that. And I mean, this is new for us. I imagine this is new for you, and I appreciate it being in a spirit of cooperation to achieve this documentation for the loss of an important building in our downtown. If we can continue to work, we'll have our consultants report, finalized report, which you will have as well. And I would like to say the attorneys could continue to correspond and get us to a very clear picture of what we're agreeing to or not. I appreciate you listening to our laundry list of issues. And I think we're there, but until we have it in writing, I'm not comfortable offering even a conditional approval. Mary Ellen, do you have thoughts on this?
Oh, I agree. I think, although I think along with Janet, we can move this forward during this time. And Janet, as you said, some of these things could be done. So Mr. Wolfson, if you would like to put together the proposal, and Mr. Testa, as soon as we have Mr. Hatch's report, share that with Mr. Wolfson. And the parties through our council can be talking throughout this time. And we will provide Mr. Ross whatever we can. I see, Dave has made many suggestions. Sandy has made some suggestions. We've all made some suggestions because I think we all want the same thing, which is a good report that lives past us.
And my client's committed to that and retain Mr. Ross to help do that. I may not be representing them at your next meeting based on the emails and texts I'm getting, but if we can get your expert's report, it sounded like it was just about finalized. If we can get that in a day or two, and if we've worked through, I think, most of the issues. I know we've worked through a lot of issues.
I think so.
If I can have a commitment from the commission that your next meeting, which is the first week in September,
September the 8th, yes.
Yeah, well, the second week in September, we will work during that time as well, and we will come up with a list of supplements and hopefully supply some of the information even in advance. We respect the co-chairwoman's interests. We will work towards that end, but we really would appreciate a commitment that we can get this done at your September 8th meeting.
I think the ball, I mean, look, Mr. Wolfson, we're going to be doing everything we can to try to help facilitate the process, move along. Certainly, when we had spoke at the beginning of I think it was in May, we had spoke before this about trying to get those things ready to streamline it before we start talking again. We gave you an opportunity to do that. So, we're not trying to force you to go as fast as you need to go or as slow as you need to go. We're just trying to help facilitate the process. The ball really is in your court to see if we can come up with this, and I will do whatever I can within my power to help facilitate that process. So if we can do it at the next meeting, I don't know what the future holds, but I certainly can be made available. I don't know if the other commission members have their things to do, but if it's ready to go, then I don't see why it couldn't be an issue.
I don't think it needs to be long and complicated, but I would just be more comfortable voting on this when I had more than the scribbled notes I have in front of me. And I think we're all working from scribbled notes when we have real clarity on what precisely is being put out here. September 8th is free for us. Gosh, I'm not going anywhere, so that's fine. Carmine, do you have any further comments about this?
No, let's get the ball going and see what we can do on September 8th to get one or two of these little things ironed out, and we just got to keep moving on it.
Okay, thank you, Max. Do you have any input here?
No, I agree with what you said, Janet. I'd like to see this brought back on the 8th of September.
Yeah.
I think, Mr. Wolfson, you have our commitment that we will do everything we can to make sure that this progresses to the point that it needs to be at the next meeting.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
So why don't we make a motion just to carry this business item until the next meeting?
Okay.
All right, we're moving to carry the movie theater condition compliance to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, I approve. And Carmine, did I hear you?
Yeah, approve, sure.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Huber.
We're a narrow quorum tonight because it is August. I guess that means next month, even though I expect we would have more people, because we're the one on this original call, it's up to us to carry it through, but I'm sure we can. I'm sure we can.
Okay.
All right.
There's a recording of this, I'm told, by Michael available.
Yes.
If anybody wants to go through the discussion on the list, that's what I'm going to use when I do my work.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. I forgot about it.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Yes.
Recordings are not posted to RoseNet, but if need be, we can make an exception. And just note, meetings will not be in person until October at the earliest. So this will still be a virtual meeting.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
At this point in time, the motion to carry this until the next meeting was passed.
Yes.
Right. Is there any other business, I guess, Ms. Foster?
No, I think we should make a motion to adjourn and carry on a little bit behind the scenes on a new day. So,
Janet.
Yes, sir.
One little question. Real quick. Janet, is there any way for me to get inside the building this week?
That's not up to me. That's up to Mr. Wolfson, who knows the contacts there to get inside the building. Could I share your email with Mr. Wolfson?
Why don't you send it to me offline and I'll share it with Mr. Wolfson and see if he can arrange something. Obviously, I would be there with him if possible. Is that what you want to do, Mr. Toto? You're saying?
Yeah, I would like to have about 15, 20 minutes inside the building because there's some spots that I remember from many, many years ago, there might be an opening to the ceiling. So I just poke around 15, 20 minutes and I bring the flashlight, and if that's okay. All right.
Obviously, I'd want Mr. Wolfson's consent to that, and we'd have to work something out, I'm sure. And,
I'm right here in Madison, so I can just about go anytime, day, after work, during the day, whatever you want to do. Whatever's easy for you guys.
Thank you for connecting us, Mr. Testa.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other business?
Good night. Thank you for your time.
Let us say we are adjourned. Good night. Thank you again, Michael, for being our desk jockey here. It's really helpful to have you running the controls. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.